Hi there, welcome back. I bet you thought I'd forgotten about this guy. No way. This is one of my favorites. I do not forget about him. However, this one had a few challenges that I had to overcome, and I've overcome some, which I'm going to show you today, and then there's still one that I'm waiting for. So let me start. I had a problem with the tone control, which I will show you the result of my attempts at fixing that today, and I think it worked quite well. There's the challenge of the cores for the AM IF, which I'm still waiting for. It's on its way. And then the other challenge was the case. And if you recall, the case had some cracks. It had the screw holes had actually cracked. I had to build that up, and I've done that, and I will show you. But for now, I want to go into some detail and show you exactly how I solved that problem. Let me first just put this on. Let's put it on ohms. Now, if you recall from the schematic, the tone control is just a variable resistor, and that variable resistor basically shunts a capacitor to ground. So the less resistance you have, the more high frequencies will drain to ground, and you'll get less high frequency, more bass. The higher the resistor, the less high frequencies go down to ground, and you will get more high frequencies, less bass tone. But that was completely broken. The actual knob there was gone. It was cracked over there, and it's practically impossible, as far as I know, to get one of these. So I decided to do a repair, and I think I've done quite a good job. Watch this. This thing is across that variable resistor, 8.6K, practically zero, and as we go up, it's obviously logarithmic. There's the megohm range. So it's actually working quite well. It's working across the entire band. If we had a, I suppose I could put the analog meter up. Let me do that. With the analog meter on there, let me show you. It's pretty good. There's a little bit of a jump at the bottom here. Oh, it's fine. Brilliant. It works. The first thing I did is I tried to find a knob that's fairly similar to the original, and this one isn't too bad. It fits nicely through the back, and this was the one they use is a pretty nondescript knob anyway, so this one fits on nicely. This is a D-type knob, and I found that on these chopsticks there is actually a flat section on there, you see. It's not perfectly round, it's actually flattened at one end, and obviously this is the thicker part of the chopstick. This is the back end, but the front end, there's a certain point where that front end is just thick enough to fit into that shaft, well, the shaft to fit into that knob, as if it was a potentiometer D-type shaft. So I used a piece from that forward. And then what I had to do is I had to I should have used a lathe if I had a lathe. I used a drill with some sandpaper and also a file. And I had to create a little ledge. I can't show you now because it'll break it apart, but I had to create a little ledge on the shaft coming out so that it would go through the hole that was there, but wouldn't go straight through. In other words, it has to put a certain amount of pressure on this base when you push it in. And the reason is that it has to pull that wiper at the back towards there. So you don't want it to go straight through. So that's the first sort of ridge I had to do. And then what you have to do is you've got to wind away, wear away, sand away this end that comes through so that it goes through that protrusion, that hole in that wiper. That is sort of squarish, and it's got like a rough edge pointing outwards. So it's sort of a clamp type. You push it in, it'll go through, but it won't go back. You know, that sort of thing. Can't remember what it's called. There's a name for it. But you have to sort of wear this away, sand this away just to the right diameter so that it goes in but holds tight. And then what you've got is you've got this little thing that goes around. It's sort of sprung because it has a permanent connection there, which is to the, well, to the ground, to the left connection, right? Or is it? Yeah. That's connected to the wiper, right? And then that goes through, that's all metal, and it goes through to there. And there's a little carbon plug on there, which fell out about 3 times. At one point, I was on my knees on the floor looking for it. And that plug is what makes contact with the resistive element here, as you can see. And what this does is it pulls that whole thing in and gives it that contact pressure, which allows this thing to act as it should. And I found I don't even have to put any glue or anything on here because this thing is so tight in here that it's going to hold. It's definitely going to hold. So there we've got it maximum, and we go across here about halfway, and down there it's minimum. So this thing seems to be fixed, and I think it's, well, other than the fact that it's got a wooden shaft instead of a plastic shaft, which was brittle and broke anyway, this thing looks good. I tried a few things, like using that existing piece that was in the middle there, drilling a hole through it and putting a piece of wood on the other side, but it was very messy. I decided to make the whole thing. Now, obviously, if you have a lathe, that would be ideal. You could actually, you know, turn the entire piece from a hardened piece of plastic or whatever you want to use, even metal, I suppose. It doesn't really touch anything on the other side. But I have to use what I have, and that's what I do. But it's working perfectly, and I've tried it. It sounds great. It actually does sound great. If you don't have this thing in at all, what you have is that this thing is very tinny, very high frequency, because the path to ground for the high frequencies through that capacitor, and it happens to be this capacitor here, 5N, I think. That path has got a very high resistance because all you get is the 2 end ones, right? The minute you put that the wiper in there, you're making it a variable resistor. And that's how you can adjust your tone. So that's one problem solved, I'm happy to say. We've got a few more. The dial glass challenge is something I haven't tackled yet, and that's simply a question of time. Getting stuff in Madeira is ridiculously difficult sometimes. You know, most of you guys live in places where you've got 3, 4, 5 hardware stores. You go there, you buy a sheet of acrylic. No big deal. I live on an island where I believe there's 1 or 2 people who supply acrylic in Madeira. I went to the one, and the minimum thickness he had was about 5 millimeters, which is not going to work here. And I haven't had time to go to the other one. So besides having to deal with the incredibly good weather, the warm temperatures, you know, all that annoying stuff, we have to deal with lack of supplies. So it's a trade-off I'm quite happy to make, quite frankly, but that's how it is. So this is still on standby. I'm waiting to get the acrylic sheet. I've got a fair idea about how I'm going to do this, and I'll probably show you my ridiculous attempts. You know, first attempt, second attempt, you normally laugh a little bit, and that's how you get it done. But that's coming next. So I moved on then to the cabinet, which needed quite a lot of work, and most of it is done. I'll show you the result and just tell you briefly what it is that I did on there. Because other than that, the dial glass, the cabinet, and then of course the 2 cores that I'm waiting for to put in here. Other than that, everything seems to be quite going quite well. I want to show you what I thought of doing here. What we have here is a core from a transformer on a SABA. I think this was a SABA Meersburg 125 chassis that I bought that was completely buggered. It's sitting around for spares. And I have some good news. I've actually got a new one, or a similar one, which I'm going to be restoring soon when I really feel brave, because that thing is a monster. It is huge. If you know the SABAs, you'll know they're pretty big. But what they use this. They basically have an iron core, which is, this diameter is perfect for this actually, fits there perfectly. There's no thread on the core itself, and then this is stuck to a plastic holder which has the core. Now unfortunately this is actually still too thick for that, but what I plan to do is cut a length of appropriate core, which somebody's kindly sending me, probably going to fit quite well in there. And then I'll use some sort of plastic extension of sorts. You know, I'll mold it, or I'll probably just, I don't know, putty it, whatever. And that'll go in there and on the bottom. And then of course you just push it in and pull it out, because all you're doing when you're screwing it in is you're adjusting the distance that it's going in, right? So it doesn't matter whether you screw it in or push it in. You're going to push it in, pull it out till it's tuned, and then somehow seal it with wax or something. So I'm waiting for that, and that's something that I'm not fearing too much. It should be quite easy. But that'll be done as soon as those arrive, and I can then show you the final result. But once again, as I said, let's go to the cabinet. Let me show you what I've done so far. And here's the enclosure. Painted, and I've painted that darkish version of the grey. Now this thing's got a few imperfections in here where this thing was cracked. I filled it, didn't do a complete sand job on there because it's really not going to be too obvious. I was actually more concerned about the these holes here, and I'll give you a close-up and show you what I've done. Now this thing was cracked. There was a little piece left over, so I stuck it on there, and I tried various things to actually rebuild this support, and it wasn't very successful until I tried something which I thought would not work. I actually put tape around here to sort of continue the mold, as it were, and then I used super glue and bicarbonate of soda. But before I did that, I put a kebab stick in there, into the hole, so that that wouldn't fill up with the super glue and bicarbonate, because that stuff gets really hard. I wasn't sure if it was too brittle, but once I got that done, I then just drilled out the kebab stick, and I believe this fits quite well. Now, I'm a little concerned. I've tried to sort of make a thread. I'm waiting for a, what do they call it, a screw threader thingy, because I don't want to force this. This is brittle, but it seems to be pretty tough. So I'm hoping it'll hold out quite well. And the result is that it actually works pretty well, surprisingly. Now, on the side here, after a lot of sanding, you can see that I just couldn't get it much better than that, but I think I'm going to leave it as it is. The rest looks pretty good. So I'm happy with the case. As I said, not a perfect case like the previous one that I did, which had absolutely nothing wrong with it, but certainly one I'm not ashamed of. So what's left? Well, the back here, I'm wondering what to do with this. I'm thinking of perhaps just touching up some of the places where the paint's come off, because all this writing on here is original. And for once, because these were actually made of some sort of paper composite, this edge hasn't broken off. On these radios, especially the SK2-2s and the 2.5s, you'll very often find this edge at the top here is broken off because it heats up a lot and it gets brittle and cracks. So this thing is still intact. I might just do that. I might just touch up the edges and then put it back in and see what it looks like. I don't think I'm going to get this thing new. I don't want to build a new one. I actually like this. There's sort of a crackle on there. To me, it's patina, and I probably will leave it like that, but I do want to clean it up a little bit. It's been washed, but that's about all. So what I need to do now is I'll put the radio in. We won't have the final look because I need to remove it again when the ceramic cores when the ferrite cores come in, so I can do the alignment for the AM. But I do want to see what this looks like inside the case. Well, rather strange trial run. I just remembered I've redrawn the dial on Adobe Illustrator. Just going to print that out, cut it out, put it in there. You can redraw it very well. I did a scan and then redrew it with Illustrator. You get it perfect. I need to print it out in some cardboard. I haven't rushed that because I'm still doing the faceplate, or rather the dial. But I just wanted to see what this thing looks like in here. And I've also got these are the replacement knobs, and this is a gentleman in Germany who makes them, and I bought the similar set for the previous SK. Yep, and they look pretty good. They do look pretty good. Now I think this is on FM. Put it in there. This one's got no little protrusion. On, off, and FM, AM. All right, we're nearly there. Putting together this thing half-assed. So, strange video this one. Not much is finished here, but I just want to let you know where I was with this project. Dial glass, that faceplate thing there, print it out and stick it in there. Finish the back and wait for the ferrite cores. So that'll be it for now. I want to thank you for watching. And if you've liked that, please click like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz. And if you want to support the channel directly, please do so on Patreon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now and stay safe.